7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
And welcome into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. It is week number 14 in the NFL, and it is time for the Vegas Squares to give you their picks. We have been, it's been such a grind here through 13 weeks of this specific contest. I know that Tony says it every week. He pulls his hair out trying to figure out how to move lines and still be in his favor. And still, as a professional handicapper, Tony, this is a contest unlike any other, I think. And I see the stress and the strain on your face every week to find 5 picks that you generally have to move away from you. That's just not even fair sometimes. So after 13 weeks, we sit here. I got Spike, I got Token Tony, and we got Tony Johnson here in the virtual Zoom studio. And Tony, after 13 weeks, if you could sum this up in a one word or a short sentence, this contest is
frustrating would be my shortened version of it. I think you kind of described it pretty well right at the top. Yeah, I mean, the only consolidation I'm taking is that it would have taken so far a real Herculean effort to have bested Token so far. I think that his record would stand with the top end of people if we had a very, very deep league here. This is a tough one. So I do take some consolation in that, I guess. But besides that, I'm frustrated. I keep avoiding lines. I'm going to have another one this week where I actually have a bet on it, but I don't want to go off of a number and take it for our contest. So I don't know. I don't know why I get so frustrated, but I do. So that's it.
That's fair. I just noticed sometimes you get very animated when, like you said, you've made a bet, a large bet, or even a small bet on a side, but you have to leave it out of this contest.
Yes.
I kind of get a little bit of a, I feel you, but I still chuckle at you at the same time.
You should. No, you should laugh at me. I don't want anyone to feel bad for me at all.
No, that's not the way. I just because we're all here in the same boat, and because Spike had to have it this way, unfortunately.
Well, ties are for pussies in European soccer, so I figured let's go with a fucking line that actually means something. Win or lose, none of this goddamn push bullshit. So, hey, and by the way, I put it out there for a vote. You ended up agreeing with me, Aaron, so don't actually play this off on me.
I would like to demand a recount at this point. I'd like a runoff election. I'd like to change my vote. But yes, and nevertheless, as par for the course for 2020, Token is defeating us all at this point, and I don't really know what to say to that. I mean, I'm happy. I would rather give my money to Token than to Spike. Trust me, no doubt about that. But the fact of the matter is, I would rather be collecting from all three of you rather than handing out some shills myself. But
well, that's not going to happen. So you got to figure.
I'm aware of that, but you know what? As long as you don't win, it's going to be a good ending to this year.
Fair enough.
So, all right. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this podcast. Talk about the standings as we just kind of got into a little bit through 13 weeks. Spike, why don't you go ahead and give us an update here?
So, bringing up the rear, our resident rear admiral, Aaron, sitting at 27 points. Tony Johnson in third place with 30 points. I'm currently in second place with 34. Token Tony leading the goddamn pack, 5 points ahead of me at 39 correct picks for the season so far, which is just absurd.
Absurd is the right way to put it. Token, what do you have to say for yourself?
It's a struggle in the beginning. Now it's starting to click a little better together. So
you struggled for like 1 week. I think you were in first after like two, or like close to first after like 2 weeks. You struggled like with I did for like, I think we both started with 1 and 4 weeks, and yours got slightly better and mine got significantly worse. So Well, nevertheless, we do have week 14, hoping that Tony Johnson and I have 5-0 weeks so we can get back and maybe sniff second place. I wouldn't mind if Spike finished fourth. It's going to be tough. I got to do well. Second place, even finishing third would feel like a win at this point. But before we do, let's thank a few sponsors here. First and foremost, 12-Ounce Sports Network, Zingo TV, and Spotify, who all air our podcast every week. And obviously our title sponsors, Fanatics.com and Vice Golf. Please shop those two sponsors using the affiliate links found on lvsquares.com. Click the sponsorship page. All of our sponsors are there. Please support all of them so they can continue to support us. The other ones, intheholegolf.com, Wicked Cuts Jerky, DC4L Custom Tees, Pro-Am Customizations. All right, so let's take a short commercial break. When we get back on the other side, we are going to have the preview of all the Week 14 games.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
At Amazon, we're pretty good at getting things done. We're pretty good at solving problems. COVID-19 is the biggest challenge we've had to face. The challenges are what motivate us. Like flying masks to our employees around the world. We're doing everything we can to get you what you need, and doing everything we can to keep our people safe. I'm former Navy pilot Sarah Rhodes, and I'm proud to lead our Amazon Air network.
All right, and we are back, the Vegas Squares podcast here, and it is time to preview the Week 14 slate. Remember, the contest that we do, all the odds are provided by the Westgate Superbook at the time of recording. So we are going to start with Tennessee at Jacksonville. Tennessee on the road, a currently 7.5-point favorite. The total in this one is 52. It's kind of a weird year. I mean, obviously it's a weird year, but it's kind of been weird, the fact that, like, we talked about Jacksonville. Tony's got futures bets on their totals, and they come out of the gate, they crush so many people's dreams in survivor pools, and that was literally the only game they won. How can anybody who has a survivor pool, who had Indianapolis in that first week against Jacksonville, and then to go on and watch Jacksonville basically be the Jets for the rest of the year? It's just incredible to me. I don't know who we're getting at quarterback. I assume it's going to be Mike Glennon again. I haven't really done too much research on this game. Not that anybody would want to do that on purpose. But I think right now at this point, the Tennessee Titans have to win this game. It's just I know that they've beat Jacksonville once, by 3 back in September. To just get back into the feel of this is a team that can compete in the playoffs. I really think, Token, they've got to blow the doors off of Jacksonville, a lifeless Jacksonville team that doesn't seem to really, like we were talking about that competitive tanking. I think that's kind of falling by the wayside at this point. So to me, I think Tennessee really needs to win this game by 3, 4, 5 touchdowns to get back some confidence with fans, bettors, and just everyone who believes that they may be able to do something or make some noise in the playoffs here.
Yeah, I mean, you might see Tennessee kind of blow them out of the water, how Pittsburgh kind of did Jacksonville a couple of weeks ago. It's going to be interesting, like how far they are up in this game with how deep in the fourth quarter, and if they're going to try and put the ball in the end zone to cover the spread or just kind of win the game. So,
Well, obviously winning the game is first and foremost, but they're 8-4 right now, again, sitting there with Indianapolis, Tony. The division's very much in play, which is huge because what does that mean? That's a home game. And obviously, the situation here, they have the leg up on the on the Colts. They got to keep that. And this is kind of, I don't want to say a bye week, but this is as close to it as you can come.
It really is big. And I think it's not just to win the division, but I do believe that these two teams are still on the brink if they do kind of fall apart a little bit down the stretch of missing the playoffs as well. We can make a good argument that Baltimore, if they get everybody back, not everybody, but as many as they can back and healthy, they have a pretty light schedule the rest of the way. If they make a deep run, and certainly if Las Vegas is able to beat Indy this week and also get on a bit of a run themselves, this might be the odd team out here if they fall apart. So I think these are actually really, really important games. And I would guess, based on knowing these two coaching staffs and really how strong they've been the last couple of years, that they are not going to be overlooking anyone or seeing this as anything more than a must-win type of setting or scenario. I really trust Reich and Vrabel a lot in these spots. I think they're both really good coaches. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think over these next couple of weeks, we're going to see some really, really good performances from the top end of this division.
All right, and Spike, 2 weeks here. We've got Derrick Henry at 180-plus yards and then Derrick Henry at 60 yards on 15 carries last week against the Browns. You care to make a prediction this week on Derrick Henry's rushing total?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Although I am going to continue to start him in fantasy because why wouldn't I?
Of course. Yeah.
No, I think my only concern here is whether or not the coaching staff of the Titans can get these guys to stop committing the big, stupid fucking penalties. We saw the one guy ejected, I forget his name, ejected from the game last week and suspended for this one. They had, I think, 3 yards of 15 penalties or more. Just not something that a team that's trying to compete for a division lead can do week in and week out. It's just not a way that you're going to win games, especially not a way that you're going to blow the doors off somebody and beat them by over a touchdown, which is what the line is in this one. So I think this comes down to coaching. This is Vrabel good enough to keep this team in line? And he probably is, being a Belichick disciple, but we will see.
All right, let's move forward to a game that I find personally, you guys may not. I find this game kind of low-key interesting, even though it's not for playoff implications. Kind of interested to see this Dallas-Cincinnati game. Dallas currently a 3-point road favorite at Cincinnati. The total 43 in this one. I know we're not getting Dak Prescott, and I know we're not getting Joe Burrow, but I think we're going to go with Brandon Allen again here in this spot and against the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton. So, again, I know this isn't a game that's on anyone's radar, but for me, I feel like this might be low-key interesting at this point. The Bengals really, even without Joe Burrow, they just aren't finishing games. And I know we've talked about that with Atlanta, and I know we've talked about that with the Chargers this year. The Bengals should have been in a lot more games than – the Bengals should have won a lot more games than they've won, and they should have been in a lot more games than they haven't been in, I guess is the way to put it. I'm surprised. I got to say, I guess I'm really surprised that anybody's a favorite in this one. I'm surprised that Dallas is a favorite on the road. It's one of those trusting bad teams on the road. What did we have? I think we had this situation 2 weeks ago with the Giants at the Bengals. And I think, Tony, you and I both talked about it. Trusting a team laying 6 on the road, a bad team, it just doesn't seem right. And then, of course, the Giants go on the road and beat Seattle last week. That was insane. In this one, again, like I said, you can disagree with me, Token, but I think this one's low-key interesting. It's from a football perspective.
This one should be pretty close. It might come down to a neck or a bow tie.
What?
I think this one ends in a tie.
A tie. I got it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. We got there eventually. Okay.
So, Token, you said for most of this podcast you'd stay on mute. Maybe that was one of those times.
Whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to see, how Andy Dalton is, on his return here to Cincinnati. I'm not quite sure it was the easiest spot to leave, I know there was a little bit of hard feelings kind of on both sides. And this was the team that drafted him, and he was a starter for many years, more than 5 years there. To very mixed results at best. Certainly, I think it would be a massive underachievement if it had to be really described. But sometimes these are some really weird games to handicap. It's the main reason why I've stayed away from it, is because guys can come in really motivated and really, really jacked, especially guys that control the game and control the ball. It's not like a receiver where the ball has to be thrown to them. I mean, Dalton can do what he wants. I just, games like this are tough. I think this is a spot where you find maybe something in the prop market here with Andy Dalton, but in regards to a game betting side and total, I'm on a straight pass.
Well, in that spot, like you said, Andy Dalton, he was born through Cincinnati, obviously, through the draft. He is the franchise leader. Not that these are, high bars to be set, but franchise leader in completions, touchdown passes, and number of 300-yard passing games. But, Spike, the Cowboys just played Tuesday and got wrecked by the Ravens.
Why are you asking me about a game I couldn't give less of a flying fuck about? Just move on to the next one.
All right, fair enough. I don't know. I still think this game's low-key interesting. But we'll move on to another game here. Arizona versus the Giants. The Cardinals versus the Giants. Cardinals on the road, 2.5-point favorites at the Westgate. Total in this one is 45.5. Let's make no mistake, Kyler Murray has struggled since getting hurt in that Seattle game, and obviously the record has reflected. They are 6-6. They've dropped a few games here in a row, and the Giants really are coming off of basically their Super Bowl at this point, beating Seattle on the road. I kind of wonder, we talked about this in text, I kind of wonder again if we were kind of on different sides, home field advantage and the lack of fans may or may not mean anything. I'm starting to wonder if maybe even in places like Seattle, if it maybe does mean something. I mean, when the offense has that bad of a game, can they be motivated by screaming fans? Because there's no reason that Seattle Seahawks offense should have only put up 12 points against the Giants, but they did, and here we are. But we're talking about Arizona and the Giants, and right now we have a suddenly hot Giants team who's won, 4 in a row, looking for 5 in a row. I now owe Mike Carvelis from Mike Said It First a freaking 12-ounce T-shirt because I didn't think that the Giants would get to 5 wins, and of course, they proved me wrong. So in this game, I think it really all goes – I saw an interesting article, a FanDuel article of all things, that the Arizona Cardinals are wasting DeAndre Hopkins, a guy who has 86 catches and 1,000-plus yards. Maybe you guys can shed some light on I don't think wasting is the right word. That's ridiculous. But, I mean, I guess it's anything to get me to click it, right?
I would definitely not say wasting this opportunity, but maybe not maximizing him out to his full potential. Both these teams really fighting for playoff spot. I mean, Arizona looking for the wild card, Giants looking for that division title. So it's going to be a back and forth kind of battle in this one.
Both teams, Tony, can walk out of here with the same record if the Giants win.
Pretty remarkable to see the turnaround from the Giants. I mean, they had a pretty reasonable defense through the first 5 or 6 weeks. Just weren't able to get any wins, and the offense was so anemic. Defense has gotten a little bit better, but statistically, it's really not obscenely better. They're just finding a way to get some wins. They're winning a lot of close games. They've gotten some better quarterback play in the second half of games. Still a big struggle early on in a lot of these contests, but yeah, I don't know. Arizona's struggling and really ailing on both sides here. I think the Kyler Murray injury that you mentioned earlier has not been talked about that much in the press and around, but this shoulder injury is a real thing. It doesn't seem like he's going to miss any time, or anything like that. Nothing major, but it's certainly affecting the way he's able to get, I think, the amount of velocity on the ball. I was looking at a statistic on one of my dorky websites earlier about how his velocity is down about 4 to 5 miles an hour over the last 3 weeks. And I think it's probably directly attributed, right to this. And that's meaningful stuff. Yeah, exactly. It's just nice to see something quantified every once in a while because you kind of think it might be, but good to see. So doesn't mean they can't win, without that. Obviously, it's a very dynamic quarterback and still an offense that has a lot of weapons. So I think it'll be a great game. I'm looking forward to a great close game, and now I'll have my New York Giants hat on, unfortunately. Weird to have to root for them, but I'm going to have to do that for this last season win bet we got.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that real quick. You have Arizona at what, 7.5 or under
Yes.
7?
Under 7.5, yeah.
So basically, they have to win 2 games out of the last 4. And you're right. Obviously, you got the Giants hat on. But if say they lose to the Giants, I think you're in the bag here. I mean, they got Philadelphia, San Francisco, and at the Rams to finish. I don't want to say anything's a lock, obviously.
Yeah.
But you got to feel real good. 2 wins out of those 3. I mean, especially if Jalen Hurts is anything good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about in the bag. I mean, those are both home games, and Philly has been a bit of a train wreck here these last few weeks.
Well, it is a home game against San Francisco, but San Francisco's been playing in Arizona up to that point for 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, I mean, we'll see. There's a chance that the Rams, it may not be as meaningful, depending upon what that is in Week 17. So, yeah, no, you're right. I mean, certainly this is a big one here. If they lose this one, then I become a favorite. But, you know, I've kind of learned throughout my short tenure of doing this pretty seriously that you can't count on anything, especially in the NFL. So it's just kind of a wait and see approach like usual. But you're right. I mean, certainly if they lose this game, it becomes a slight favorite. And if they win the game, you know, I'm certainly a very significant dog.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same point, at 6-3 with a 7.5 under bet, you can't feel good. And now the fact that you're actually at a shot, a gut punch really would be 8-8. A gut punch.
Yeah. I'm happy to have a chance. I mean, you can no, I'm not a greedy guy. I'm happy to at least have a shot at it. No question.
Well, a greedy guy would want to win. So.
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes you don't make the right bet. This wasn't the right bet. So if I win and get lucky, that's great. But you know,
we'll find out. Yeah.
Only thing I want to say about this game is, we talked a little bit about Kyler Murray's shoulder injury, but that's not really explaining why he's not running the ball as proficiently or as often as he was earlier in the season. So I think there's a lot more wrong with him than just his shoulder, and I don't know if it's necessarily completely physical or if it's just mental at this point, if he doesn't feel like the offensive line can keep him upright or whatever the case may be. So I think that's going to be key, not just in this game, but I think going forward for his career. If he wants to be successful long-term in this league, he's got to figure that out, either how to run or get to a team that has a better offensive line than what we've seen from Arizona. So I don't know, not what I'm on, but fairly interesting storyline in this one anyway.
I think that the shoulder injury might be directly correlated to why he doesn't run. You take hits, you take hits as a running quarterback, unless you're Russell Wilson, who seems to be the only quarterback in NFL history that knows how to get away from taking hits. He's the only guy I ever see who knows when to get down. These guys, when those quarterbacks are running, these guys are licking their chops to lay wood on. So I don't know. It may be it might be a mental thing. I don't want to run because I'm going to take hits because I don't know how to run properly. I mean, we've seen it with RG3, Kaepernick, maybe to an extent Lamar Jackson sometimes. So I don't know. You could be onto something there. So, all right, Houston and Chicago. The Houston Texans, the 4-8 Houston Texans going into Chicago as 1.5-point favorites. I didn't think I'd say that one, especially when Chicago started off really well this year. Total in this one, 46. Not really sure how to feel about this. I mean, Trubisky, when he's in, it seems like they can't put the ball in the end zone, but their momentum, they can build an offense. They just can't score. I don't know how to really say it other than that. Chicago started 5-1. They're 5-7 now at this one. It just doesn't seem like there's any end in sight because although, like I said, Houston is 4-8 on the season. They still have particularly maybe one of the better quarterbacks in the league in Deshaun Watson. And it seems like no DeAndre Hopkins, no Will Fuller. He finds the pickup of the week, Kiki Kuti, and he just keeps rolling. I mean, Deshaun Watson's doing more with less, like a guy who played in New England for a while, and Deshaun Watson maybe end up there too.
That'd be an interesting storyline if he does go over there, but I mean, to say the least, the here and now, he's with Houston, even with shrapnel is what he has left, and he's killing with it still. So, I mean, 6 weeks ago, this game would have been a different storyline, but Chicago and Houston, not playoff bound, but kind of moral victories at this point.
Yeah, this is I think going to be Interesting spot here with Houston, not used to playing in weather and conditions like this. It's not supposed to be really, really bad weather, but I know the high that day is only like 35 degrees, and there'll be some wind, and it's just not going to be all that pleasant. So, I think Deshaun Watson's a lot of things, and he can overcome quite a bit. But having a much reduced receiving core with what looks like Brandon Cooks will be a game time decision. Even Kiki Kuti picked up an injury late, although he did fully practice, I believe, on Thursday, so he should be good. But it's just a really depleted team, and while Chicago's defense has not been all that great the last 2 or 3 weeks, they still have quite a few good players. And Akeem Hicks will be back; he fully practiced again this week, so I think it's kind of a tough spot here, scoring wise for Houston, and it seems like the only games they can really stay in are games where it becomes a shootout. It's just tough to have a shootout, when the high is 35 and it's cold and there's wind. So that's the only thing I think that's keeping Houston away in this game. But it looks like Chicago's sort of quit a little bit. We saw some remnants, I think, of that a little bit last week. It's just it's an unfortunate situation, but I don't think there's much of a chance at this point, unless things get turned around unbelievably, that Nagy keeps his job.
Interesting. Yeah, I think you're right about Houston and the fact that they need to keep the game close, or they can't get involved in those shootout type games. The problem with that logic to me is that implies that Trubisky can lead Chicago to a shootout type game, and I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the case. This one to me is actually the first one I have in, so I actually have a play on this game, which we'll get to at the end here. But one of the things I want to look for is if, who on these teams feels like the season is over and who's playing for fun and for jobs, because I think the effort in this game is going to determine everything, because it's not something that we're really used to thinking about in the NFL with these teams. Maybe yes, maybe no, but if the Chicago Bears like Nagy and they want to keep him around and these players want to see him do well, especially next year, then they'll play hard for him. Otherwise, I think we'll see them kind of give up, and I think Houston might take this one. So interesting storylines here, I think. This is a fascinating game to me.
Well, not only that, I mean, you look at you're talking about, potentially wanting to play for Nagy or Nagy keeping his job. The other storyline is the Bears at 5-7 are still in a playoff spot, like in a playoff race. I mean, the 7th position is 6-6, and I know that I believe they've got one more game against the Minnesota Vikings, who are the team at 6-6. Yeah, actually next week at Minnesota. So really coming in, they've got 3 more division games after this Houston game. So like I said, I mean, to be honest, Trubisky has the easier defense to go against rather than Deshaun Watson, who has to go against the Bears defense, who's, despite all things that the offense has, the challenges the offense has thrown their way, the defense has actually been pretty good this year for the Chicago Bears. So, I mean, this may be something where it may not be a shootout because Deshaun may have trouble figuring out or finding holes in this Bears defense, because all the receivers that he has are from the movie Little Giants. They're just kids running around with their helmets on backwards. Especially, like you said, if Cooks doesn't play, Kuti doesn't play, I mean, they've gotten virtually nothing. So maybe look for Deshaun Watson to have 80 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, because that's the only way they can move the ball at that point. But like I said, Chicago is a must-win game, and then 3 against the division to wrap up. This is big. This is big for Nagy right here, and probably Trubisky at this point. So. All right, Denver and Carolina. This number is off the board at a lot of places, but not at the Westgate. Carolina, a 3-point favorite. And the total in this one is 45.5. Not a lot going on here that's positive. We've got no Christian McCaffrey. We've got virtually no offense with the Denver Broncos, despite the fact that they really, I mean, we talked about this, they play the Chiefs well, no matter how in disarray the frickin' Broncos are every year. They play the Chiefs well, 22-16 last week, covering that 13.5. But they've dropped 4 of 5. No, like I said, no Christian McCaffrey. The Panthers are out of this one. This one, I feel like, has this false sense of interest to me. But we've got no DJ Moore, no Curtis Samuel in this one. So it's really just a who's who on the field this week of players for both of these teams. it's quite unfortunate because at full strength, minus the quarterback in Denver, I think these two teams actually are pretty decent when they're fully healthy. We've got no A.J. Bouye this week, one of the up-and-coming cornerbacks in the league, tested positive for PEDs. Maybe that's why he's one of the up-and-coming cornerbacks, because he's cheating. But, again, I don't know. I really don't have too much of a feeling on this one, and I would hate to have a play on it because that would force me to watch the game.
Same here. No play, very little interest except for slate fantasy implications, but
Yeah, I'll be quick here and get my inner spike going, but this is a straight up pass. I have nothing. There's a lot of guys out. Don't really know what we're going to expect, and I just quickly passed on this one pretty much on all counts.
I'm going to guess that Spike is done too. So we will move on. His stunned silence. We'll move on to Kansas City and Miami. Could be an interesting game. Two teams. Well, I mean, I don't. What are we going to get from the Dolphins at quarterback at this point? We've seen Tua, we've seen Fitzpatrick. Both have been fine. I'm guessing that we're going to go with Tua Tagovailoa in this game. He's 4-1 so far. It hasn't thrown an interception, so I can't blame Brian Flores for really going with him this year or this week. But they are facing a juggernaut in Kansas City at this point. Again, Kansas City 7.5-point favorites on the road. Total in this one is 45.5, which we say this every week. Excuse me, not 45.5. I'm looking at the wrong.
50.5.
Yeah, 50.5. It opened up at 45.5. I was shocked to see 45.5. I'm like, that thing had to go up. And of course it did. We got 50.5 here. Kansas City is actually a 7-point favorite. That was weird. My thing refreshed to the wrong page. So we're back here with this one. And Kansas City, again, we seen it last week when they can have an off game. They can look human against a team they should have blown out in Denver. And we've seen it where they can run the score up 20, 30 points on a team. So it's really, we're getting to a point here with Kansas City is what Kansas City team wants to show up. I mean, look how they got out to such an early lead against Tampa Bay. Didn't cover a 3.5-point spread. So it's really hard to bet Kansas City right now, in my opinion. On or against?
It is, and it's going to be interesting how this Miami defense kind of tries to contain their offense. I think they attack little by little and start slowing down Kelsey, but also covering the back with Hill. So that's the only way I think they can kind of keep this game close in this one. So
yeah, it's a very intriguing game, and I think we saw, in my opinion, it was Tua's best game as a starter here in his NFL career so far. I thought he played really well last week and finally actually made some reads and did some intelligent stuff with the ball instead of really kind of telegraphing a lot of passes or, looking down receivers. I just thought it was really a high quality game overall. I understand it was Cincinnati, and I get it. It wasn't exactly, the greatest team out there, but I really thought he gave his guys the best chance, especially with yards after catch, and he got the ball out early, and I think that was really nice. And that all sounds really good, and that's great, but now he faces, really a much better pass defense. And when you look at it, Kansas City has been, really an excellent pass defense, especially given the fact that a lot of teams are, intentionally having to throw the ball quite a bit against them in the second half, and they've been really, really stingy. Not only in just, covering guys, but getting to the quarterback. A lot of hurries, a lot of rushes. It's really been a fantastic pass defense. So, again, I'm not going to have much in this game, but the only thing I will say, the only nugget is I'm really confident, and I don't know where the number is going to open. I'm pretty sure where it'll open, but I think if you can find a Tagovailoa passing yard prop, I think the under is the spot here, because especially after that quality game thrown for 296 last week, if he's somewhere in the 240 range, which I believe he will be, this is a stone cold under here because it's going to be really, really tough sledding, and he's not going to have the time in the pocket and the easy decision making that he had last week.
Spike, let me ask you a question here.
All right.
Put your objective hat on.
All right.
Is Travis Kelce a better tight end than Rob Gronkowski?
All around overall tight end, no, because I think Gronkowski is a better blocker. But if you're talking about pass receiving, like just strictly catching the ball from the quarterback, then yes, Kelsey is light years better than Gronkowski. And I think, to be fair, that Kittle might even be better than Kelsey if we could keep Kittle on the field and keep him healthy. But I think overall, Gronkowski is a better blocker. Gronkowski played special teams, and he was great on field goal tries and all that. So I think overall, for value to the team, Gronkowski was the better position player. But I think just strictly pass catching, it's Kelsey.
Yeah, that's fair. It's not what I thought you would say. So, I mean, I thought you would say hard no, like just no description or anything. So I'm impressed. So, you have any thoughts on this KC Miami?
Yeah, no, I completely agree that Miami's defense has been incredibly impressive this year. So how and if they are able to contain Mahomes and that offense is obviously going to be the key, which is not really saying anything mind-blowing. But I like this matchup just on paper. I think it's going to be a very fascinating game. I'm curious to see how this ends up. And I am actually not rooting for either team, but kind of rooting for Miami as much as I hate to say it. So we'll see how this one goes.
All right, fair. And the last game I have here on the early slate is probably, in my opinion, the biggest game as far as playoff implications and everything. Tampa Bay hosting Minnesota. Tampa Bay, a 6.5-point favorite. Total in this one is 53. Buccaneers, obviously, it would be incredibly tough. Not out of the realm of possibility, but pretty much certain that they're not going to win the NFC South this year. At 7-5, basically 4 games back of the Saints at this point. But they're holding on to the 6th spot in the NFC, while the Vikings are holding on to the 7th spot. So this game is crucial for both teams in this one. Tony, you and I talked about it. Basically, we were hoping that they would be 7-5 heading into this matchup. 6-6 is about as close as you can get, considering they were 1-5.
Yes. Yes.
So, and Tampa Bay right now, they limped into the bye. I think they lost 3 of their last 4 or 4 of the last 5 games heading into that bye. And for a 43-year-old quarterback, this is the bye week couldn't come soon enough. I think they have the latest bye week at week 13 at this point. That's crazy. But I think the big thing here, if the Bucs want to get back on track, is despite the fact they have Evans, Godwin, and Antonio Brown, it's running the football with Ronald Jones and then, spelling him with Leonard Fournette. They've got to find some kind of, they've got to find some kind of catalyst to make the running game work, because if, they're not – in those last 4 games, they were averaging 57 yards rushing. It's just not going to do it. And if Tom Brady has to throw the ball, what's the one thing you can do to beat Tom Brady is pressure him. And it showed in those games, especially with the Rams and the Saints. Pressure, and Tom Brady has no chance. Minnesota's got an average front 4, especially with Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin being off that line now at this point. But at the same token, flip it on the other side, the Bucs defense, who's been pretty good, has to stop Dalvin Cook, who they know is going to get the ball at least 25 to 30 times a game. So it seems like they've got tough challenges on both sides of the ball to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
They do, and this one's going to be a bigger tiebreak one if Minnesota does happen to come out victorious in this one for playoff spots. Especially head-to-head, having this head-to-head victory over Tampa could make or break Tampa Bay's postseason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one I think there might be some one-way traffic in. I'll be honest, one of the games I already bet. I bet it really early in the week. Hasn't really done a whole lot line-wise, which is kind of nice. But everything I've heard and read out of Tampa is all good stuff. They said that everyone's talked about the bye week came at the right time. That guys got some rest. They had 4 or 5 days off straight in a row. But on that third day that Brady came in and went into the weight room, and half the team was already there, and there's quite a bit of positive stuff going on, and I think this is a get me right type of game for Tampa. I really want to be on Minnesota here. I'd like to have a chance, but I think this one could get away from Minnesota. Unfortunately, this is the best rush defense in the NFL, and really they have been since week one. An unbelievable thing, really, when you think about how bad Tampa Bay was last year, especially on the defensive end, and how much better they have been, especially on the line. And it's I think this one could be one way.
Interesting. Yeah, according to covers.com, 60% of the money is on Tampa Bay right now, even at the 6.5. So a little bit of an interesting line there. Brady having to cover a full touchdown when he's going up against a defense that can put pressure on him and can put hands in his face, which, like Aaron said, can screw him up. That has been the recipe to beat him in the past. I don't know how I feel about this one. It was not one that I was looking to bet at all. It's just one that I think, I don't think the importance of that bye week can be understated. It's the absolute right time to get some of these guys healthier. It's the absolute right time to rest a 40-some-odd-year-old quarterback. And it's the time where the quarterback and the coach have to get on the same page, because they've been kind of trashing each other in the media a little bit, and it's about time that they had a little time off. They could get away and kind of regroup, refocus, and hopefully they use that time to do that if getting into the playoffs is important to them, which I assume it is. So could be a fun one, could be an interesting one, certainly one that my dad is going to wish Tom Brady blows out his ACL, because he is anti-Tom Brady all the way this year. I am hoping for the Tampa Bay win, because I still have the bet of Tampa Bay having more wins on the season than the New England Patriots, and currently it's only a one-game spread, which I don't like. So let's go Tampa Bay in this one.
Yeah, especially if they lose this one to Minnesota. They'll be 7-6, the Patriots 6-7. I still think you're probably safe in that, just because New England is just way too predictable on offense.
Yeah, well, and New England has two of their last 3 or 4 games are against Buffalo and Miami. Yep. So those are 2 losses right there.
That's probably so. All right, moving forward, let's go into the later slate. And the first game on that is Indianapolis coming over to the desert to face the Las Vegas Raiders inside the Roomba. Indianapolis, a 3-point road favorite.
Roomba?
I thought we were calling it the Death Star.
Death Star. It looks like a Roomba.
It kind of does. I never thought about that until you just said it. That's kind of good. That's good. Yeah. Did you come up with that, or
I cannot take credit for that. Other people have been.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Somebody flew a drone into the place today and caused like $8,000 worth of damage to the side of it.
Wow.
So. And then the guy asked for his drone back, which I thought was the most baller move of all time.
Well, if he's gonna have to put up $8,000 in damage, he might as well get his drone back for it.
Yeah, why not?
I'm assuming. Well, why don't we just take it out of the rainy day fund? They got money in there.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Don't get me started on this shit.
All right, Indianapolis field goal.
Nice troll, Aaron. That was good troll.
Field goal favorite, total 52.5 in this one. This is another, low-key interesting game. Las Vegas is kind of hanging on by a thread here in the playoff, because, the playoff standings. They are the 8th seed, right behind the Indianapolis Colts. So this game is directly correlated to that 7th seed. It's crazy to think it's a team like Indianapolis. I wasn't on the bandwagon after, the first couple of weeks. And then I don't know what it is. Phillip Rivers just slowly hooks me in. And then if they lose this game, I think we're starting to see the real Philip Rivers that we've come to know and love over the last, 15, 18 years at this point. Phillip Rivers hates the Raiders, so there's obviously going to be motivation for that, because he played them for so many years in the AFC West with the Chargers. I don't know. I really don't know where to go with this game, because Las Vegas can turn it on and play against the teams they've got to play up to, and this is that exact matchup. So it scares me to be a Colt backer in this spot on the road. They're just not a great offense. I mean, it took freaking Phillip Rivers 13 weeks to find T.Y. Hilton. I mean, last week, he's been hitting. The guy's a great receiver. I hope for fantasy purposes, I'm piecing together a fantasy team in my big money league this year. I mean, I went Kiki Kuti last week, and I'm going Brandon Ayuk and freaking T.Y. Hilton this week. I've just literally, my top 3 picks are out. So I'm hoping that Rivers can find Hilton. But as far as betting goes, Token, I don't feel comfortable laying 3 points against a team that can play up to these better teams.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. It's just too many variables, especially having faith in Rivers to find those set of receivers. But however, they are facing this kind of really spotty Las Vegas defense in this game. It's just going to be tough for them to kind of keep this one close, in my opinion. But Las Vegas is full of surprises.
Yeah, it's you guys pretty well described it here. I was trying to figure out something or find something in this one, and I think it's tough. I agree. The fact that Las Vegas plays up and down to opponents just on the weekly basis. It's
look at last week. They needed a freaking, I would call it a Hail Mary with 5 seconds left, basically.
Oh, my goodness. And then they just get blown out.
It calls an all-out blitz with 6 seconds left in the game.
Yeah, that's the first time I actually had – yeah. Well, we'll get into that in the Jets game talk. But, yeah, I mean, you guys described it well. I'm going to stay away from this one, although I don't think this is low-key interesting at all. I think this is very high-key interesting. This is a huge game for the conference, and I think both teams can do some damage if they do get into the playoffs. So clearly, I think this is a big one here. And Indy intrigues me way more on the defensive side than the offensive side. I could really care less about Phillip Rivers. It's how well this team can play on defense. When they are playing at their best, they are really, really, really strong. So I think this should be a really fun game to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I actually have one of my picks on this game as well, actually on the total. And I think it's going to be how much these offenses show up. Obviously, it's going to really matter. And if the Raiders offense is going to play up to the competition that they're facing and they can put up the 30 some odd points that we're used to seeing out of them in most of the last few weeks, I think this is a really interesting spot and a really nice play on that total. So we'll get to those picks at the end of the podcast here.
All right. Next game on that slot, the early late games, I guess you could say the 05 games. The New York Jets, the other New York team, I guess the New Jersey team, is going to take their crack at the Seattle Seahawks, because apparently they're just handing out road wins to underachieving teams this year. Seattle is the biggest spread of the week, 14 points. Total in this one is 47. You know, it's crazy. After the loss to the Giants, and my philosophy on biggest spreads of the week, there's zero chance I could take the Jets in this spot. Zero chance. I can't even believe, again, it's more a testament to the Raiders playing down. I can't even believe the Jets were even in that game against the Raiders. The Seahawks you talk about teams, we talked about this earlier as far as like the Tennessee Titans, with confidence from fans and backers. The Seahawks, more than any team in the NFL right now, need to beat the shit out of somebody. And I think that just may happen. But even there, on that side, I don't know if I can trust them laying 14 points either. This is a stay away kind of game for me in this spot.
It's kind of a golden opportunity for Seattle. They can probably easily win this one, and they can get away with making mistakes in this one, so there's not a lot of pressure for them.
I mean, Russell Wilson has gone from MVP to nothing, to a middle-of-the-road quarterback at this point. I said he would do this in the beginning of the season, and he proved me wrong for 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with you, Token. I think this is a really nice game for Seattle because, as you said, they can make some mistakes here. They don't have to really play, not necessarily perfect football, but they don't have to play at their best. And I think that's the kind of real, mindset and idea where you can sort of let it go and freewheel it a little bit. I'll admit it. I've already bet this game. I'm not going to take it for a contest because of the number of where we're at, but I have Seattle minus 13.5. Minus 115. I got that pretty early on in the week, so I don't think it's going to go down at all. I think it'll only go back up past the 14 here. I really like Seattle in this game. I don't like to bet a lot of big favorites either. As you know, that is something I am not a fan of, but this is the get me right game if there ever is one. And we're going to have some really subpar weather as well in this game, and I am really, really excited to watch the Seattle defensive line, which is really strong. I know they gave up 2 really long carries to Wayne Gallman in the second half. That will not happen again with a depleted running back core that the Jets have. I think this is going to be a very tough game for the Jets to even move the ball. If they're in the red zone more than one time, I'll be shocked in this one. So I think Seattle big.
All right, Spike, I got something for you here. It's a fun fact. It's the
God.
funniest,
All
the
right.
funniest
All
of
right.
facts, I promise you.
All right.
All right, so the
Let's
NFL just on the Thursday night game showcased all of their Walter Payton Man of the Year nominees, correct?
Yep.
So those are nominated by the teams. And the New York Jets nominated cornerback Pierre Desir, which doesn't sound like anything interesting except for the fact he got cut 3 weeks ago. The Jets' Walter Payton Man of the Year isn't even on the team.
Nice.
And nothing spells Jets like that. God. I mean, the only way you could get me to watch this game is if somebody told me there was a chance the coach gets fired while he's still on the sidelines,
Ooh,
just so
that'd be
we can
interesting.
watch him, like, have to hand over his microphone and equipment and walk out.
I've said it since day one. Adam Gase makes it through the season. Although they did fire a coach last week. They did fire their defensive coordinator.
Oh, yeah. Whoopty shit.
Mhm.
All right. I don't care. Go on.
All right. So let's move to the 125 slate. Start this off with Detroit and Green Bay. Now, there's been some talk. The line has gone off the board at a couple of places, including the Westgate's mobile app, which is interesting news to me. But on the Westgate Superbook, according to here that we have, the Green Bay Packers are a 7.5-point road favorite against the Detroit Lions. Total in this one is 55. Now, I believe they won by 3 touchdowns against the Lions earlier in the season, and I think Devontae Adams had like 74 touchdowns in that game. The Packers are rolling. I know that you guys, or at least Spike, I know, and I are on different sides of this. I don't think Green Bay is a fraud. I think they've got I can justify their losses. I think they're a lot less of a fraud this year than they were last year. But these games, Green Bay and Detroit, are literally like close games, or Green Bay blows them out, right, Token?
Pretty much nailed it right on the head. And this one, I have no idea what to make because the interim head coach, and the question mark is Stafford's questionable. If I had to pick something on this game, I'd probably take the under, just because I think Green Bay might start resting some of their players on offense starting in the second half and slowing down the throttle a little.
Well, I will say this. I do kudos to Detroit, the Lions, for kind of getting a little revenge against Chicago last week after that week 1 where they blow a 16-point fourth quarter lead. And
yeah, they shot themselves in the foot by doing that, though.
Well, I mean,
draft pick.
I understand that, but Detroit, at this point in time, I'm sure that Darrell Bevel's trying to win games to maybe be the next coach of the Detroit Lions, but they got to.
He's probably not going to be.
No, probably not. You're probably right, but he doesn't know that just yet. So, Tony, basically, the Packers with a win and a Minnesota loss or tie can get that NFC North crown, and effectively we can rip up those tickets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem unfortunately likely at this point, so I'm not holding my breath for that one. But yeah, it's these games are sometimes a little bit tough to handicap, division games, no matter really where the records show. In fact, we saw Detroit really competitive in the first game of this series. They had the lead in the second quarter and then really kind of fell apart. But these are tough. These are really tough ones, and it's not a type of game that I really want to be laying a lot of points with for a road division. Favorite is just not something I'm ever going to do. So let's look at the total here. And yeah, I know. I just think the pace is the number one deal is what do we get in this game? And, we've seen with Green Bay with the lead, they really, really slow it down. In fact, they run about 5 to 6 seconds faster per play when they are behind or when the game is tied versus when they have the lead, which is not terribly uncommon. Usually teams are a little bit slower, but not 5 to 6 seconds. That is quite a big difference. So again, I think we're going to see, that early and often in this one, and just kind of get out of there with a win and be as healthy as you can. would be the mindset. So, but the back door is always open with a team like Detroit, as we know. Stafford is literally the best quarterback, I think, late in the fourth quarter. Whether it's winning a game, covering a spread, it doesn't really matter. If he's got the ball in his hands, it's always open. So that's where I'm at in this one.
Yeah, this was one of the first ones that I kind of scratched off the list just because of that line, and not necessarily because I didn't think that Green Bay would score enough points to put them up big late. It's exactly what Tony Johnson just said, is that Stafford has that ability for that little backdoor fuck you in the ass late in the fourth quarter that comes back, and Detroit loses by only 6 instead of the 7.5 that you need for the spread. So I think for me, this is all about the individual matchups. Trying to watch Devontae Adams to see if he can get that touchdown in an 8th straight game. See what Rodgers is going to do, how many more touchdowns he can add to his total. Just like those kinds of things in this game interest me. The game itself doesn't. I've never given a shit about the NFC North. I don't think I've been quiet about that. So it's just, if it happens, it happens. But otherwise, there's no real big interest in this game for me.
All right, moving forward to Atlanta versus the LA Chargers in the SoFi Stadium. The Chargers dropped their first game, or had their first loss in SoFi, and it was quite a loss. It's kind of crazy that on Sunday, the New England Patriots can score 45 points in SoFi Stadium, and on Thursday they can score 3. It's just a tale of 2 really weird games.
4 red zone trips, 3 points.
Yeah. Well, that's because
frauds.
when they're on the 5-yard line, Cam Newton's running a draw play. That's just fucking scripted in the goddamn NFL playbook at that point. They just have nothing else for some reason. Anyways, we're talking about Atlanta versus LA, a tale of 2 teams that are exact mirror images of themselves in terms of being able to hold leads, finish games. Although the Falcons have played a lot better, I will say, under Raheem Morris. They are currently 4-3. Played the Saints tough, couldn't get that cover last week. That was unfortunate. But, I'm reading an article. It's crazy. You start going into these deep, dark places on Twitter. You start getting into the specific teams. And there was actually a guy who had the stones to write an article that said, this is how Anthony Lynn can save his job. And the only thing really it basically is winning, how they could maneuver and win the 4 remaining games. So good luck to him. I thought Anthony Lynn could maybe do something to win Coach of the Year, and I couldn't have been more wrong with that. Actually, it was more of a wing and a prayer than kind of a real belief that could happen. But here we are, veteran versus the rookie. I think that's going to be the big game here. A big matchup here is, there's nothing really to play for, in my opinion, with this matchup. It can be entertaining if we get a shootout, and I think that's the only reason I would ever even watch this game, though.
I've got some fantasy football players on this one, but besides that, not too much action. I mean, Atlanta seems more on the up and up between these 2 teams, and now if Chargers have Eckler back, it's kind of a wild factor for the Chargers offense. So it'll be interesting how that happens.
I forgot to mention the total the spread in this one is Atlanta -1.5. The total in this one is 49. And like I said, if we get a shootout, we could shoot way over that total.
That's for sure. I definitely agree with that. I don't really have much in this game. This is, as you said, a tale of 2 teams that just blow games, and I have zero faith in either one of them, especially the Chargers. I've been really anti the Chargers ever since Herbert was named the starter. I still think that's the wrong decision. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but I wouldn't really want to be laying points with sort of a bad team on the road. That's kind of weird to lay points with Atlanta, but does that mean do I want to take them with the Chargers? Absolutely not. So this was a pretty quick pass. If to do anything, the over makes some sense just because these defenses really are relatively anemic. And but again, I don't have any faith in either one.
Yeah, to me, this is kind of a strange matchup because I'm curious to see exactly how the Chargers bounce back from that loss to New England, and if they are just going to kind of roll over and die, or if they're actually going to put some effort in and get back to their old kind of, not winning ways, but at least putting up points ways. Herbert has looked good in a bunch of games, and then the last 2 or 3, he's looked like the NFL has figured him out. So This is going to be a matter of not only that rookie getting his act together and being able to do better things with the ball, but it's also the coaching. They have to prepare him right for this game. They have to put him in a position to win. They have to have the right play calling. And that I think, it's not necessarily about, winning this game saves Anthony Lynn's job. If they lose, then so be it. But if they lose because they had the right game plan and then still lost, then so be it. But if they went in there and they fuck it up, like if they have a Josh McDaniels style game plan in hand, then I could easily see Lynn and company getting fired. If not after this game, then at the end of the season, and this game would be the cause of it.
Well, I think he's all but gone at this point, but I do have to agree with I don't remember the guy, the name who wrote, or gal who wrote that article, but I have to agree the only chance that he has of saving his job is finishing 7-9. It's unfortunate because you're right. And Tony, you've said this, Anthony Lynn in game is maybe one of the worst coaches.
Oh. Yes.
But he's also a what if. They haven't had a full healthy team for his whole tenure. I mean, Derwin James, Austin Eckler, Phillip Rivers goes out. It's just they can't field the proper team that they set up, the GM set up, and you almost really wonder what if they could have been healthy. If Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler could have been there, if Melvin Gordon wasn't holding out for that period of time that allowed Austin Eckler to become the feature back. It's just, you kind of wonder what if with Anthony Lynn, if he does end up getting fired, if he does end up landing on his feet somewhere. I think he'll have a job as a defensive coordinator somewhere, but as a head 100%. Coach, it might take a while. So.
I agree. It does have a Peter Principle kind of look to it. He doesn't seem like he's in quality control here as a head coach. He does so much dumb shit during the game that I think as a D coordinator is really sort of where he should be at this point. We'll see if he gets another opportunity at some point down the road. He might, but certainly coaching defense, I don't think there's any question that he can do that well.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. I think that sometimes coordinators don't make the best coaches, at least offensive and defensive. So.
Yep.
All right, moving on to the Philadelphia hosting the New Orleans Saints. Philadelphia Eagles hosting the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans on the road, 7.5-point favorites. Total in this one, 42.5. We get Taysom Hill again, as Drew Brees will not be able to go this week. I'm curious to see. He comes off injured reserve, so I'm curious to see if maybe they're going to get him back for the last couple of weeks. But we do have a quarterback change in Philadelphia. We've been talking about it for a while. Actually, Spike, after we preview all the games, I want to ask you a what-if scenario.
All right.
And it's not the Carson Wentz thing again.
Okay.
But we're getting Taysom Hill for a fourth consecutive week. They go against the Eagles. I feel like there might be a shot of life here in Philadelphia. New Orleans has won 9 in a row. That's really hard to do in the NFL. Winning 10 in a row is really hard to do as well. Pretty sure that, I've said this at this point, if Taysom Hill can continue to lead this team to unsexy victories, that's all they really care about right now. And so far, he's been doing it. I still don't trust Taysom Hill to play in any game that's worth anything. But right now, he is, I guess you could say, proving me wrong. He's completed 71% of his passes. He has 629 yards and 2 touchdowns. So for right now, I guess Taysom Hill's doing everything I said he wouldn't do.
Yeah, he's doing what he needs to win, which is what you want to see in a quarterback, especially a young quarterback. But he has to develop a little bit more. He has to bring more aspects to his game if he wants to be the guy long term. You can't be the one-trick pony in this league because you get figured out, and that's when people kind of screw you. So you got to be able to figure out other ways to throw the ball. You got to be able to read defenses better and quicker than what he's doing now. And that'll come with time, and he's got a good coach and he's got a good quarterback that can kind of mentor him, assuming that Drew Brees wants to mentor him and he doesn't pull a Peyton Manning. That's certainly something that he has the chance to be the guy, and he has the chance to be a good, serviceable, if not above average quarterback in this league for a long time.
However, Token, he did fumble 3 times last week, losing 2 of them.
Yeah, that is correct, and it's just something's got to give with that, and it's going to be interesting how the bounce back happens.
And I'm curious, Tony. I mean, we got two, for lack of a better word, gadgety quarterbacks here. Oh, did we lose Tony?
Yeah, looks that way.
Seems like it.
Oh, hey, I just got the text.
Just
Computer just restarted. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll just pose this one to both of you. Like, we've got gadgety quarterbacks. I mean, we haven't seen much out of Jalen Hurts, but when he has been in, it's been kind of a gadgety thing. But this could be a weird matchup, I guess. I don't really know. I don't really know if I trust Taysom Hill laying this many points on the road, coming off of a subpar game, even though he won. And I don't liken the brand new quarterback to the brand new coach, but I still think this may give the Philadelphia Eagles a jolt of energy, despite the fact they're 3-8-1 and probably out of the playoffs at this point.
I think it actually hurts the Eagles more right now. They were doing all right with their game possessions and all that, like controlling the ball, controlling the clock, and all that.
They were turning the ball over at like alarming rates.
They are, but I think with the game management aspect, it's not a good move at this point in the season, especially against the New Orleans defense.
I got to think it's a great move. Throw this kid to the fire. At this point, he's got nothing to lose. I mean, he's been second-guessed and doubted from his time at Alabama. He got replaced by Tagovailoa, and now he's the guy in Philadelphia. Like, literally, if he plays well, he's the starter going forward. And if he plays poorly, then it just goes right back to Wentz for the 2021 season. He's got no pressure virtually on his shoulders at this point. I think it's the right move. Even though I don't think all of the problems for Philadelphia are solely on Carson Wentz.
No, I mean, look, I don't like Carson Wentz as a quarterback. I just don't. I don't trust him. I don't think he makes the right decisions. He turns the ball over too much, and I don't think he runs well enough to be considered a mobile quarterback, even though I've seen some people describe him that way. I have no idea why. When he's on, he's good, but he hasn't been on in about 3 years. So I don't know why we keep thinking that, like, it's just an inevitability that it's going to come back to that kind of level. I just don't see it.
Well, a change of scenery might do something like that. And to defend the running quarterback thing, he has not been a running quarterback since he tore his ACL running the football.
Yeah, well, that is reasonable to an extent, although we have seen running quarterbacks who have had those kind of major injuries. If they, they either come back and try like hell to come back as a running quarterback, or they change up their game to become that traditional pocket passer. And if that happens, then they are a better quarterback than what we've seen out of Carson Wentz, at least this year.
And agreed. And I think the biggest thing for Carson Wentz is the change of scenery. Unfortunately, the Eagles signing him to that fat contract extension really hinders that. No team is going to want Carson Wentz for $28, $30, $32 million a year. It's just not happening. So I think realistically, the good thing for the Eagles is if Jalen Hurts is good, he's on a rookie deal. So you're paying basically Carson Wentz starter money and Jalen Hurts back up to third string money. So effectively, your quarterback position is not hurting you like it would have when there was Foles and Wentz both taking up big chunks of salary. So it actually may end up working out for Philadelphia in the long run. And eventually when they can, not have Carson Wentz as a burden, if Jalen Hurts becomes, the next successful quarterback in Philadelphia, then they'll get rid of Carson Wentz when they can. And I'll interject this here because this is the one I wanted to ask you. We got a couple more games. We've got the Sunday night game, the Monday night game, and we've got one more of the late games. But I wanted to ask you this, Spike. Mm-hmm. I've asked you every week, Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson. This one I want to ask you because he's going to be the most interesting name on the market this offseason. Now, at the right price, would you take Dak Prescott?
Oh. This is the first one that you've proposed to me that I actually have to think about because I am intrigued.
Because I can't imagine he's getting $30, $40 million a year. He's going to have to come back and, maybe on a Bridgewater deal, like $20 million, which is cheap for quarterbacks. We know he's got talent,
Yeah, he's got talent. He's an interesting player. He's certainly not on the downside of his career. The only thing I can think of that's going to be an issue with him coming to New England, if this is indeed something that would a player that may consider coming to New England, is that New England just doesn't pay free agents market rate. They're going to look for the guys that are, sometimes borderline players that Belichick thinks have been used incorrectly in their previous systems, and therefore he can plug them in somewhere else. Not really the case with a quarterback, especially one that has that kind of the name and the reputation of a Dak Prescott. Wherever he goes, he's going to put butts in the seats, well, assuming we can actually go to games ever again. But he will sell jerseys for whatever team he goes to. And I don't see a scenario where if he is going to ask for 20, 22 million, like New England's never going to be able to outbid other teams. If the market rate's 20 or 22, New England probably comes in at like 16.5 and says, and you get to work with Bill Belichick. If that is enough for Dak to sign in New England, then I think it happens. But
well, that's the thing. I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, of all the quarterbacks you've asked me about, I would prefer him over everybody else that we've talked about.
Even over Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, oh yeah. I think his is the least likely to happen.
I would agree with you, but I think what's going to happen is, based on some reports I've seen, Adam Schefter's out there saying that Dak Prescott's got all the leverage in his contract negotiations this offseason, and I think that couldn't be further from the truth, but that's, again, just my opinion. I think he's going to set his own market at 30-plus million, basically what he was due to make pre-injury, and I think everyone is going to balk at that. And if everyone's rate is 20 and the Patriots can find 20, he may want to go to the Patriots to play with Bill Belichick. Because if you're saying, I can take 20 million and go play for, this coach who has really no pedigree, or I can take 20 million and go play with Bill Belichick. Because I think, with all due respect to Bill Belichick, I think these 13 games or 14 games, whatever, 13 games have shown, with all due respect to the greatness of Bill Belichick, he needs a strong quarterback because it masks a lot of the other inefficiencies on that team. And no more prevalent than this year. I mean, Cam Newton throwing for 80 to 100 yards a game, that just sucks. That's just absolutely terrible.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what is it, like 5 touchdown passes and 10 picks, 11 picks maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, he's got, 9 or 10 rushing touchdowns, so, cool, but
they're 6 and 7.
Yeah, they're below 500, so
they're not a top 5 pick, and they're not in the playoffs, pretty much. So.
Yeah, and this was my worst case scenario, so it is what it is.
This is my nightmare.
Yep.
All right, my personal most intriguing game of the late slate right here is Washington at San Francisco, which is technically at Arizona. San Francisco, a 3-point home favorite in this, or neutral favorite, I guess you could say. Total in this one, 43.5. I'll foreshadow this. I got a play on it. I think everybody's going to be high on the football team with Alex Smith knocking off the Steelers from the ranks of the unbeaten here in this spot. The 49ers, low-key, are literally like – that loss against Buffalo was kind of tough, but they're sitting right out that outside, especially if Tampa Bay can beat Minnesota. And if they can beat Washington here, they may pop right back up to that 7 seed based on tiebreakers and everything. In this spot, I feel like Nick Mullins has actually been a competent quarterback. He's actually in the spot where now they're starting to get healthy. Ayuk came back. Kittle should be back here, I think, next week for the last couple of weeks. If Mullins can play on a similar pace to the Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't see why there's a reason this team can't be running on full cylinders as well as they were playing last year. The defense is playing well. Just let Nick Mullins kind of be that game manager. All the running backs are coming back. I kind of dig the 49ers in this game.
Yeah, 49ers are definitely getting healthier at this point in the season, and that's a big factor, but they are missing a lot of the key components. Washington, on the other hand, a lot of the guys that were hurt earlier in the season are coming back, and especially on that defensive side of the football. And they're competing for that division title against New York Giants right now. So it's going to be a back-and-forth bloodbath battle survival for San Francisco's playoff hopes might go down the toilet in this one.
Yeah, I looked at this game, and this was my last one out. It almost made the cut, and I almost looked at it by taking San Francisco, thinking that the Washington team, we've seen it too many times before, where a team somehow, some way beats another team better than them, significantly better than them, and they shouldn't have been in it at all, and they ended up winning and blah, blah, blah. And I think this becomes the letdown game for Washington. It was just that because of our contest, we have to move the line that half point and make it 3.5 instead of the 3. That's why I lay it off of it. So I still think San Francisco wins this one. It's just that hook that is giving me pause as far as how and where to bet. But if you can get it at 3 or even 2.5, I think it's a 2.5 on William Hill right now. If you can get it at that number, absolutely get San Francisco.
All right, and Week 14 has blessed us with two, in my opinion, really good primetime games. We'll start with the Sunday night game. Buffalo hosting Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh coming off, like we just talked about, that loss, their first of the season. So they can kind of breathe a sigh of being done with that, the undefeated talk. Buffalo, a 1.5-point favorite at home. Total in this one is 48.5. Again, I think for the couple of clunkers we've had on Sunday nights and Monday Night Football, I think this is a really good one. Tops in the AFC North versus tops in the AFC East. Two teams that did not win those divisions last year. And I think we have two quarterbacks, Ben Roethlisberger playing really the game manager, the well enough to win game kind of games for the 11-1 Steelers. And Josh Allen maybe starting to enter some people's MVP races or talks in this spot. I know it's tough to really go against Patrick Mahomes the way he's played so far. But with Russell Wilson really falling off, I think the other guy here in this spot really jumping in. And you guys may have a different a person. If you do, please feel free to share. But I think Josh Allen is maybe jumping into that other guy in the MVP race in this spot.
I mean, at this point, he's definitely a dark horse and a long, I would say a semi-long shot for a reason. But he could sneak into it. He's got a few key games late in the season, and this one's the start of it. If he performs well in this one, passes for 300 to 400 plus yards, and controls this game and wins it pretty handily, he definitely bumps up in that race.
Yeah, I can certainly see why people would think that Josh Allen deserves to be there. I think he's had a couple of bad games this season that's going to hinder him in that MVP race. But overall, yeah, I think his body of work says that he should be at least in the conversation. It is Mahomes' award to lose. I'm actually on both parts of this game, both the side and the total, so I don't want to blow too much of my load here. But I will say that if this is not a bounce back game for Pittsburgh, then I fully expect them to kind of fizzle out in the playoffs. So I'm very, very curious to see how this game goes and what Pittsburgh can do against this Buffalo team that is, it's turned some heads. It's impressed even me as somebody that's hated Buffalo for 20 some odd years, but they're definitely interesting to watch.
Yeah, and like I said, going back to the Josh Allen thing, if he's able to shred this defense, this Pittsburgh defense, I think he would really go far into maybe getting a little closer to that, especially if Mahomes has one or two bad games or sits the last couple of games, especially if they can get that number one seed. Pittsburgh defense is first in the league in points allowed at 17 points, second in the league at passing yards, 199 per game, and third overall in total yards at 300 a game. And also there's TJ Watt, who leads the league in sacks with 12. So if he can shred this defense, I think he's definitely going to be in that conversation if he's not already now. So, all right, last game, the Monday night game, Baltimore at Cleveland. This game at the beginning of the year, we probably didn't think was going to be this crazy, or we didn't think the records would be this way. Cleveland at 9-3, 5-1 at home against the Baltimore Ravens, who are 7-5, 4-2 on the road. The line currently is still Baltimore as a favorite on the road at 2.5. They did crush Cleveland in the beginning of the year. I think this is probably a different Cleveland team, total 47 in this game. And I say it every week. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but a couple weeks ago or 4 or 5 weeks ago, Baker said, losing Odell may be a blessing in disguise. And so far it's hard to argue, and it still continues to be that. It's crazy to think that taking away a receiver with the caliber of Odell Beckham makes your team better, but sometimes just getting rid of a headache is good for a team. And Jarvis Landry has stepped in just fine, in my opinion, for Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's going to be a hell of one to watch. A big one. Unfortunately, neither will probably win the division this year, but it's got a lot for the wild card playoffs. I mean, both these teams could easily even get in still, but it's going to be a long way for the rest of the season on this one. Cleveland's kind of hard to figure out. Baltimore, when they're good, they're really good. So,
well, to be fair, I mean, if Pittsburgh's got Buffalo or at Buffalo and they're home against Indy on the schedule left, if both these teams are 12-3, they face each other in Cleveland in Week 17. That could, I mean, I'm not saying that it's likely they're going to win the division, but could you imagine Spike 2020 Cleveland Browns winning the AFC North?
Well, I said at the beginning of the year that it wouldn't be Baltimore, so as Cleveland or Pittsburgh, either way.
But you did say it would be Pittsburgh.
That's true. I did say it would be Pittsburgh. So it's one of those interesting spots. But look, I really like what Lamar Jackson has done while he's been in this league. Baltimore is definitely one of the improved teams in this league, but the wrong team is the favorite in this game. And I know that we're about to get into our picks because this is the last game that we're going to be talking about. This is one that I have a play on. I have absolutely no idea why the Baltimore Ravens are the favorite in this one. Just
it's totally fair. That's a fair question.
Does not make sense to me at all. A 7-5 team as a favorite against a team that's 9-3, a team that has looked really good in Cleveland in the last few weeks, whereas Baltimore has struggled. This line, I cannot figure out this line. I don't know where they came up with it. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And the public money is on Baltimore. It's at 53%, which isn't a huge spread, but it's still showing that the squares are going to Baltimore. This just screams bet the mortgage on Cleveland this week.
Maybe so. It is a Baltimore team that has had Cleveland's number over the last few years. So, I mean, it may be the public still not trusting Baker Mayfield. We'll find out. All right, that's going to wrap it up for the Week 14 slate preview. We are going to jump right into our picks here. Unfortunately, we did lose Tony Johnson due to some technical issues, but we still have his picks. So, since Token, you are still in first place, you will get to give us your Week 14 slate, hopefully an 0-5er.
No, my goal, at least for the remaining of the year, is 3-2 every weekend. I should probably right away home with the W in this one. So I'm going to lead off with the over 45.5 in the Giants and Arizona game, and then over in the Jets and Seattle game at 47.5. Taking Atlanta -1.5. Taking the Aints -7.5, and then taking the football team +2.5.
All right, Spike, you are in second place, so you will give your picks, and then third place, Tony Johnson, you may share his as well.
Yeah, so I will say I am grateful that Token and I are on none of the same games this week, not even that we're on different sides or anything else. Like, we didn't come close to picking the same game, so I'm grateful for that. I can actually make up ground on Token. First game I have is Houston and Chicago. I'm taking the Texans -1.5 because I don't trust Trubisky. Indy and Vegas, I'm going over the total, currently sitting at 52.5. I know it's a big number, but I still think these offenses get going. Pittsburgh and Buffalo, I did say I'm on both pieces of this, so I have Buffalo -1.5 and taking the under 48.5. I think this one's a grind, and I don't imagine a lot of points being scored. And finally, like I just said, I think Cleveland should be the favorite, But since they are the dog, I would take them. I'd take them as a money line favorite. I would take them minus probably 3.5 at this spot. For Tony Johnson in Tennessee versus Jacksonville, he's taking the favorite Tennessee minus 7.5. Green Bay and Detroit, he thinks will be under 54.5. Minnesota and Tampa Bay, he's taking Tom Brady and the Bucks minus 6.5. And then the last two, he's on the same side as me. Pittsburgh and Buffalo under 48.5. Baltimore and Cleveland, he's got Cleveland plus the 2.5.
All right, so rounding them out here, my Week 14 picks. I am also taking the Tennessee Titans minus 7.5 in that spot. I am also looking at a New York Giant letdown here, 2.5. I'll take Arizona minus 2.5. Cincinnati, I'd love to get that 3, but we don't do it that way here, so I will take Cincinnati plus 2.5. I'll take another dog here, wishing I could actually, I'll take the other dog, Philadelphia plus 7.5 here. I think that Jalen Hurts might actually beat Taysom Hill and give New Orleans a loss. Hard to win 10 games in a row in the NFL. And my final pick is the Washington-San Francisco. I am laying the points, the 49ers, and I'm pushing that to 3.5. 49ers minus 3.5 points in that one. So, Token, you and I are on opposite sides. And as Spike likes to say, there's room for us both to get middled.
Yep.
All right, Token, DFS time, DraftKings lineup, $50,000 budget. Let's hear what you got. Let's make the people some money.
Okay. Starting out with quarterback, we got Aaron Rodgers for $7,500. We have Todd Gurley for $4,800. Le'Veon Bell for $4,400. Devontae Adams for $9,300. CeeDee Lamb for $4,800. We got Lazard for $5,000. Moving on in tight end, we have Goddard for $4,000. At flex, we have A.J. Brown for $7,300. And then for defense and special teams, we got the most special of them all, the whole football team for $2,800, leaving $100 on the table.
Oh, he left a bill on the table. Attaboy. All right, to wrap up the podcast here, as we do, I hit another 14.14 teaser last week. I'll recap that one. Atlanta plus 17, Cleveland plus 19.5, Kansas City with the win, and Pittsburgh, thank the freaking Lord, I got 7 because they lost by 6. So that's another one of the books. I believe, I could be wrong, I believe that's the 8th one this year. So let's go for number 9 here, and we're going to start with the Cincinnati Bengals at a plus 3. They are going to move to plus 17. Going to take the Arizona Cardinals, who are minus 2.5. I'm going to take them to plus 11.5. The Seahawks are a 14-point favorite. So on a 14-point teaser, that makes them just a pick'em. So I'll take the Seahawks at a pick'em. And in that Sunday night game, you are on the total, Spike. I am on the alternate total. Pitt Buffalo under 62. So that's to recap. Bengals plus 17, Cards plus 11.5, Seahawks at a pick'em, and Pitt Buffalo under 62 points. 2 good defenses there. I think they should definitely keep that under 60 in that spot. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for the Vegas Squares week number 14 picks. We appreciate you listening. Be sure to support the sponsors, our title sponsors, excuse me, Vice Golf and Fanatics.com. Please check us out at lvsquares.com. Click the sponsors tab. Those 2 sponsors, along with all of our other sponsors, are there. Please shop this holiday season using those affiliate links or those promo codes so that we can continue to run this podcast. And we greatly appreciate 12 Ounce Sports Network, Zingo TV, Channel 761, and, of course, our newest provider of content, Spotify. You can check us out there. Just search 12OZ Sports, and all of the 12 Ounce Sports shows that are uploaded will be on Spotify as well. So again, for Spike, for Token Tony, and for Tony Johnson, I am Aaron. I appreciate you guys listening. We appreciate you guys listening. Good luck on your bets, and we will catch you on the next one.